Thank you to SnakeStone97 for their generous donation as a YouTube member.
It's around noon when we slowed down to take a break. Gad and Manaba packed us some bread, but it's hardly enough to share among the 7 of us, so we eat most of it on foot. Stomach's growling pretty bad. Those supplies can't come fast enough. How we holding up? Not too bad, if I do say so myself. Avery taps a thin pair of lines on the map. I guess they're the path we're on now. What I guess of the supplies are marked by a large circle. Path seems to be lining up again. Should reach the supplies any moment now. See, I know how to read a map just fine. I never said you couldn't. You did, multiple times. But if we ended up going the right way, then what was with that house? Cliff shrugs.
Most likely just abandoned by the previous owner. You saw what a terrible state it was in.
But Avery said it wasn't supposed to be there.
He may have just missed it before. It was quite well hidden among the trees and bushes, because it was a hideout.
I'm not entirely sure what it was. All I know is it gives me a bad feeling. Of course you are, because you're the current inhabitant of the Hum. God damn it. There are all these glimpses and peeks into the past. We went fucking 100 years into the past to play this game from Echo, and it still wasn't far back enough. Do I want another fucking prequel? Do I want the Smoke Room prequel? Do I? Yes, I fucking do! Much like the smell that's been hanging in the air these past few minutes. It's getting to the point where I have to pinch my nose. The hell is that? It smells like a sewer. That's putting it mildly. Makes shit smell like Cliff's perfume. It's a carcass. As we round the corner, I hear flies buzz louder and louder. Wait, a carcass must mean we're close. Jeb's eyes go wide and his breathing speeds up. He runs ahead of us to look into the clearing, then stops. Is it his mule? His chest rises and falls rapidly. No. He steps back and his legs give way. He falls. Jebediah! Alk rushes over to the collapsed horse, putting his large hand on under his head. He too looks into the clearing. Shit.
What's wrong?
He tips his muzzle into the clearing, and we all gather around him to look at our old campsite. Or what's left of it. It's unnatural. I thought what happened in that house would be the most off-putting thing we had experienced today. The tents have collapsed. The wagon is busted beyond repair or hell recognition. Papers are strewn all over the forest floor. I think I can see what remains of Cliff's satchel. It's been torn to ribbons, just like the rest. At the center of it all sits the donkey's corpse, twisted and mangled to the point it doesn't even resemble one anymore. Its head is missing, and what's left of the rest of it has been feasted upon by bugs. Next to me, Murdoch's usual smug grin completely disappears from his face. He holds a paw up to his muzzle. I can hear him retch. I'm getting close to it myself. I don't think this was done by some creature hunting to survive. It left most of the body.
And took the head as a trophy.
Weasel's expression is grim, unfocused. Is Jebediah going to be okay? Out cold. Shock, most likely. He'll come round in a few. Don't blame him. Seeing something like this, he can do things to the mind, Sam. Terrible things. Tell me about it. I pinch my nose shut. Doesn't help. The only thing I can do is try not to look. You seem to be doing okay. He shakes his head. I'm not. This is unlike anything I've seen before. Like ritualistic slaughter. Murdoch wipes his muzzle with the back of his paw. I haven't seen him this rattled before. Let's Let's be quick about this. I don't think I can stand here any longer than I have to. Avery nods. I think that goes for all of us. I glance at Cliff. The weasel's still staring straight ahead. His eyes are empty. This poor fuck just wanted to go on vacation, and his life is like fucked now. Jesus Christ. I put a paw on his back. Cliff? He jumps. Yes? Yiska, Murdoch, Sam, and I are gonna see what supplies we can carry. Alright. What do we do about... As I shift the donkey, we leave it be. No. Jebediah jolts awake, wheezing and coughing. Avery rolls him onto his side. I want to bury her, Ave. His voice is weak. Avery frowns. Jeb, no, I don't think it's safe to... You don't get it at all! He forces himself into a sitting position. I have to do good by her. I promised him I'd take care of her. Promised who? Jebediah ignores me and looks out into the clearing once more. Fixes his hat. There's shovels in the wagon. I'll help. He gives me the same look he gave me when we were fixing the wagon just the other day. Genuine surprise. Thank you, Sam. Might be the first time he's called me by name. Weird fucking quotation mark. Can you stand? Yeah, I'll be fine. Grabs Avery's hand and rises to his feet with a grunt. Be careful, you hear? I'll be alright, I reckon. I'll check the food. Jebediah gives me an expecting look as he passes. I'll be with you in a second. Right. He heads out into the clearing too. What are you gonna do, Cliff?
I don't know. I shall gather what I can of my research, probably. What's left of it.
Even that's gonna be hard. Half the pages I see on the ground are either completely torn or smudged beyond recognition with mud or sand. I can help you. The weasel lightens up.
You will?
Of course.
Splendid. If you're helping me, I'm sure we'll finish in no time at all. But first...
He looks at Jebediah, who's clearing the bugs off the carcass.
I'd like to pay my respects. Not for the farm animal, but for Jeb.
I wipe the sweat from my brow. I've done some digging during my time in the mines, but that experience isn't making this any easier. We found some more shovels among the remains of the wagon, and we're up to our necks in dirt about now. Even Cliff is helping us dig. Haven't heard him complain yet, surprisingly. Maybe all that work with Manaba did him some good. Reckon this is deep enough? We're getting there. How you holding up? I'm more worried about you.
I've been wondering something.
Yeah?
You told Avery you promised him you'd take care of the...
He clears his throat.
That you'd take care of Doris. Who is the man you're referring to?
I was wondering, too. You even asked. Jebediah leans on a shovel. It's a long story.
We'll be digging for some time yet.
Oh, hell. He scratches the back of his head. I can tell you, I suppose. Doris wasn't mine to begin with. She belonged to my... She was my partner's.
I didn't know you were married.
I was never... He takes a breath. As queer as the rest of us? I whisper it so that oh, you whisper it. As queer as the... Oh, for fuck's sake. I whisper it so the others can't hear. He silently nods his head. What are the fucking odds? How is it always that we wind up with an entirely fucking, like, I get that, I don't want to knock it because representation and normalizing it is super fucking important. So I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, like, statistically speaking, what are the fucking odds, right? He silently nods his head. I had a feeling. I was 16. After Avery left for Echo, there was no one on the ranch who really got me. He was the only friend I had. And then my parents hired a new farmhand, just a little older than I was at the time. He was Masada. He stops digging to wipe at his eyes. We got on like a house on fire. I wrote these stories, see, and you would always read them. Tell me what I thought of them. One of those stories, he was about him. Didn't mean for him to find it, but he did. Told me he'd been feeling the same way. That's how we started.
That's sweet.
Jebediah smiles. I couldn't let my parents find out, so we made a plan to run for it and make a living someplace else. Maybe get a book published. So one night, we went for it. Got all the way to Echo and bought ourselves 2 donkeys and an old wagon with the money he'd made working at the ranch. Couldn't find anyone to publish my books, so until I could, we'd make money as guides to and from the settlement. Things were good for a while. Then he got sick. Real sick. He was losing weight fast, coughing, running high fevers. Eventually, he'd lost so much that there wasn't any of them left.
What was it?
Avery said it was consumption. We couldn't treat it in time. He sighs.
That's terrible. I'm so sorry.
I could only promise him that I'd take care of him as best I could. They were the only things we had. But I was just a scared kid. I could barely take care of myself. So I drank instead. The only thing he asked for, and I couldn't even manage that. He shakes his head. And now Doris is dead, and who knows where Daisy could be.
I'm sorry. I dragged you into this.
You paid him for a service, Cliff. It's not your fault. You didn't bring that beast here. He thrusts his shovel into the ground with a grunt. I think we're done. He turns, climbing out of the open grave. After helping Cliff out, I follow suit. Jebediah has already got Doris wrapped in the remains of his own tent. I can feel my eyes start to water when he drags her near. I don't know if it's emotional exhaustion or the smell. Cliff's clasped his paws together, his eyes are closed, and he's murmuring softly to himself. Avery's joined us, pack in hand. Looks like a fine resting place. It'll have to do. He swallows. How are the supplies? We managed to salvage a lot of them. Should be more than enough to reach the settlement at the very least. He helps Jebediah lift Doris up. Together, they lower her into the grave as gently as possible. Jebediah takes off his hat. His legs buckle a little, and for a moment, I'm scared he's going to faint again. Avery notices and takes Jebediah's hand in his. Horse inhales through his nostrils and leans on Avery's shoulder. The elk wraps an arm around him, muffling the sobs that ring out through the camp. Fucking sad, man. Sad. Some sadness going on. The update's still going, holy shit. The trail gives us a little trouble after the stop at the camp. Starting to think that what Murdoch said might have been true, but the forest wanting to show us things, whether we wanted to or not. Things I'm not sure I'll ever be able to understand. Which is weird, especially since they established we're outside of the cursed circle. So, like, Maybe it travels with the person it inhabits, and it's not about the land, but maybe it is the land, or maybe... I don't fucking know. I don't goddamn know. Doesn't keep me from wondering. And I'm sure the rest is mulling it over too. By the time we finally got to the outskirts of the forest, we were as tired as we were yesterday morning. Tired, but relieved. I never want to see this forest again once it's all over. Almost dark out. Where are we camping? Usually stop around here, but I'm not willing to risk that right now. The horse points at the map in his hand. We'll have to walk past sundown for a little while. There's a spot a ways out of the forest that should be safe. It's a small outpost, if you can even call it that. I don't know if we can get any supplies from other folks, but we'll have a place to sleep and bathe.
We can bathe?
You fucking priorities, man. I'd almost forgotten Cliff was walking next to me. He's been unusually quiet since we left the camp. Yep, there's a spring. Always let the Jennies drink there.
Finally! It's been so long!
For once, I agree with him. Just don't tell anyone about what's happened in these woods. The last thing we want is trouble on our hands. No need to worry about that. I'd rather forget myself. There many folks at this outpost? A fair amount. Most of them only passing through. It can get pretty rowdy, depending on the crowd. It ain't all bad. Plenty of music and dance when the mood strikes. The weasel hums, his tail bristling.
It sounds like a wonderful place.
Yiska, Sailor, you boys coming too? Sailor scratches at one of his big ears.
We've gotten this far together, right?
I will join you as well. Now that's what I like to hear. The more the merrier. I'm starting to look forward to this too. Maybe I can start looking into where to head first if I do end up running. If there's travelers about, there's bound to be someone who knows the area. And if there isn't, I can at least wash up and get some rest. Maybe celebrate getting out of these fucking woods. Hope someone has whiskey. I could really use a drink. It's strange to see the desert again after so long. The only way I can tell this place apart from the wasteland right outside of Echo is by looking at the plants. More of them here. More colorful ones, too. The girls back home would have liked these. Can't see any sign of the settlement yet, but I do see what I suppose is the place we'll be resting for the night in the distance. Large camp, lots of tents lit by a single bonfire that must be nearly thrice the size of the one of the Hogan. Can't make out the people sitting around it very well, but I can hear their voices carried by the wind. Seems like Avery and Jebediah were right. It is pretty crowded. Suppose the spring Jebediah mentioned is behind all the tents. Out of sight, hopefully. I need some time to myself. Been a couple of days since I worked, and so much has happened, the urge has kind of snuck up on me. Good thing these overalls are so baggy. As we draw near, Coyote huddled up close to the fire is the first to notice us. He reminds me of William, though he's a fair bit less bulky. He shouts at us, bottle in hand. I can smell the beer from here. Well, if it isn't Jebediah! I look at the horse from the corner of my eye. This a friend of yours? I run into him on the trail every now and then. Hey, Ed. The others around the campfire start looking to us as well. By the looks of their clothes, quite a few of them are from Echo, though they look far less ragged than we do. Ain't like you to come all this way without the girls! Girls? Oh, the donkeys. Motley crew you got here!
We're on our way to the settlement.
The Coyote whistles.
Settlement, huh? Quite the hike from Echo. Oh, we're...
Stoat glances at the ground, then back up again.
very aware.
Well, it ain't so far now. Should be a half a day's walk if you leave in the morning. Wouldn't recommend going that way right now. Folks say there's monsters afoot. Could you believe it?
I exchange a look with the horse next to me. Ed's eyes follow Jebediah's to me. He nearly drops his bottle trying to pick his jaw off the floor.
You! Ain't I seen you at the hip before?
Fuck. I can hear some stammering from our group. As for me, my cheeks are on fire. I tend to bar there sometimes. Coyote nods excitedly.
Right, that's what it was. Memory's getting a bit spotty.
A middle-aged bat lady with dark gray fur sitting behind him speaks up. Then maybe you should stop drinking.
The night's just getting started.
Seems to have already forgotten about the donkeys, or me, for that matter.
Let me introduce myself.
He clambers to his feet, and already I'm not sure this fellow can stand much longer.
Name's Edward Purcell. No, that's quite the mouthful, so most folks just call me Ed.
This is we're all still taking in this guy's personality. Cliff steps forward, offering him a paw.
My name is Clifford Tibbets, leader of this expedition.
Ow!
Ed shakes his paw so hard I see Cliff flinch.
Fancy title for a fancy fella. Not sure I've ever seen a weasel in the wild before.
I beg your pardon.
I'm pretty sure we just found a guy who can beat Cliff at talking. The weasel retracts his paw and shakes it about as if it were bitten by some sort of insect. Coyote appraises the rest of us.
I can see why Iska and Sailor would be here. But how'd you end up with the Burns boy and the doctor?
It's quite the story.
Coyote laughs.
One to tell over a beer, I reckon.
We can't say no to a drink, can we, buddy?
I agree.
I think I might take a long bath in that spring first.
I'll join you then. He's looking all shy. I think I'll sit at the fire for a while. Got some things to think about. We can bathe later. I want to take a look at that spring, too.
It's a short walk from behind the tents and trees. Can't miss it.
Thank you.
He lets out an excited squeak as he turns to me.
Shall we get going?
He goes on ahead, leaving Murdoch and I to look at one another. Fox smirks at me. I get the feeling this is what he was hoping for. You don't want to make him wait now, do you? Can't have him running into trouble again. He does make it a habit. Is this the to be continued? No? Wow, we're getting a spring scene. Holy shit.